All right, so this one is
Module 4.
Module 4, and each team, or each group of facilitators will get 12 sets of the
Broken squares.
broken squares, thank you very much. And during lunch, while they're at lunch, we'll be setting up the tables or the chairs to look like this. I'm sure when they come in, they'll probably pull them apart and do all kinds of different things. So you want to just make sure that as part of your instructions, you talk about how to get the chairs back looking like that. And then we'll get into the broken squares game. But to start out, it's a quick review. What's a key expectation?
Not delivering is not an option.
That's not an option. And then what does 4 mean?
Frameable, obtainable, repeatable, measurable.
All right, we had some great examples of some repeatables out there, which is great. And then what's one of the key takeaways from the form session?
Make it repeatable.
That's right, make it repeatable. So, to start out, how many of you out there are competitive? Yeah, I know this group pretty well, and you know, you are very extremely competitive, and everybody here likes to win. And what's the purpose of playing any game that we do?
To win.
Absolutely, it's to win. And how many of us like to win? Yeah, raise your hands. I know some of you love to win. So what we want to make sure that we do is we work within our regions as much as possible. There's probably 1 or 2 that might have to branch off and work with somebody from another region. But where possible, we want you to work in regions. And what we want you to do is we want you to set your chairs up just like this. Just like they were when you got in. And you want to put your books and everything to the side. You won't need them for this particular exercise. And then the chair on your immediate right will be your work surface. So that's where you're going to play the game. And so once you get ourselves set up, then we can kind of get ready for what we call the broken squares game. So each of you is going to get, each group is going, what do they get? Each of them get an envelope?
Yep.
Each of you is going to get an envelope. And the rules of the game is pretty simple. The objective of the game is to win. So I know I don't have any problems with this group. The way you win is for each team to assemble 5 equal squares, 1 in front of each player. And the game is finished when all teams have completed the exercise.
Now, one of the things for facilitators at this point, if you do have an unequal number, it should work out that you have pretty close to 5 in every group. If not, then you'll have to have an extra person stand behind one of those other people, so they'd have 6 people in a group. But you really need to have 5 in each one, so you'll have to spend a couple minutes just making sure that the math works out.
Right. All right, and so just to review before we get started, what's a square?
4 equal sides.
4 equal sides, okay? And they all have to be 4 equal for each team member, so just keep that in mind. So, with every game, of course, there's rules, right? So the rules for this game is that as of right now, there is no speaking allowed. It's total silence. I'm the only one in the room that's allowed to talk. Secondly, you cannot request a piece, so you can't signal. You can't clear your throat. You can't go point. You can't do one of these things. There's no silence. There's no signaling. And there's no harumphing of any kind. There's no grabbing as well. You can't grab pieces from another part of the table, and you can't dump pieces. The only way that you can do this is if you work on the square immediately in front of you, and the only way a piece can change hands is if the piece changes hands only if the person that's offering it accepts it. Okay?
So,
Let's go back. So if you got one piece of the puzzle at a time to a team member, you can give out one piece of the puzzle at a time. But the only way it can change hands is if that person actually accepts the piece that you're offering to them.
so if you stick your hand out and that person doesn't accept it, then you have to keep that
You
piece.
have to keep that piece, right? And if you break a rule, I get to...
There you go.
If you break a rule, sorry, a little technical difficulty. If you break a rule, I have the authority, and I will exercise that authority, to take a piece from your group for 2 minutes. And you heard me, that's right, because this game is actually going to be played on a clock. You've got 10 minutes as a team to be able to get 4 equal squares in front of each partner, right?
1 equal square in front of each partner.
Thank you. 1 equal square in front of each partner. 10 minutes, no talking, go.
Yeah. And the only thing here, again, would be making sure that people don't open the envelopes until you say go.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
Okay. So now that everybody finishes, once again, if there's people that are finished early, you can have them go over and help them. Again, no pointing, just trying to help people, give them encouragement. It kind of creates that team aspect of everything that we do. But to kind of get into this next piece, which is really the next piece of this outer ring, is really the communication piece. And so the Broken Squares game is really a great illustration of how difficult sometimes it can be to communicate your key expectation and get things done. And so what we want you to do is we really want you to spend some time on page 5 in your book and work as a team and really discuss the 3 questions that are on here for discussion purposes. We want to make sure that each of you on the team really talks about what happened during the course of that game. So they do that, right? And then I had some notes written down somewhere with some of the things that we came up with, which really were on page 97 in your trainer guide. But the things that we came up with were what did it take to win? So things like teamwork, patience, other people knowing the goal. Number 2, which was what got in the way. So there was lack of communication, waiting for help, focus on too much on me instead of focusing on other people, non-focus on the big picture, so on and so forth. And then number 3, I had how does this game relate to working with your expectations chain? Everyone can win. Think about the team, offer help, and so on.
So then the question is how does give me an example of how this game looks every day in your restaurant. How does what is this besides being a fun little game for us to do? Give me some examples of this.
Well, it's actually a perfect example of what goes on in the restaurants because for people to understand the bigger picture and also understand their role, different roles for different people. So your heart of the house people have a certain role in you achieving your KPI.
Right. So are your heart of the house, people working on, are they working on the GSI scores that you have for that, or are they simply working on their piece of the pie, which is I'm just worried about, the food score, right?
Right.
It doesn't matter to me what the service score is.
Servers have a different role, and therefore they have to do their role in order to achieve that GSI score, right?
Because sometimes it almost seems like it's better to just let people concentrate on their own piece, right? So don't worry about if you're the AOR bar manager, don't worry about takeout, all right? Because and you can see from this game though that if you're only focused on your square, even if you get your square, you don't win, right? Bill talked about the building blocks. If we only get locked into our own little square, whether it be AOR, whether it be our position, whether it be our restaurant, right? If you're so concentrated on, I blew away my dough raiser goal because you got something and you didn't share it with the rest of the region, that's the same thing. You were working on your square. Wonderful. You got a square. Everybody else is still broken.
You're holding everybody else up.
We're never going to win, right? Everybody's got to be working together on the whole piece, and that's really what we're talking about. And you can think of examples, and I would continue to go around the room, and there's so many examples of how this game applies.
Right. So once you're done with that, we're going to get into the. We lost the clicker. Into the what, why, when model. And so this model really is a great way to kind of frame communication. And so what, why, when? Why, what, and when? When we talk about key expectations in a restaurant, what do we usually focus on?
What?
Yeah, it's usually the what, and it's usually by the when. We usually conveniently avoid this. In some cases we do it, but in general we're talking a lot more about what and when. And the thing here about it is we really need to start to understand the why and communicate the why. You can look at this cartoon, it kind of talks about that what and when. ASOC, I won't have time to hold your hand on this project. You need to work independently. And by that I mean you should imagine what I would tell you, then go ahead and go do that. Not a lot there. The 5 whys. Why is it important? Why me and not somebody else? Why now? Why do it this way? And why would I want to do this? The key about the why here is how do you make the why compelling? And so the story I tell about a compelling why is, as most of you know, I fly a lot for work. And as I fly, I kind of tend to sit in the same spots all the time. I like to sit in the exit row because 2 reasons. 1, I get a little extra leg room. And 2, the guy in front of me can't lean the seat back. Right? So I get a bonus. The trade-off there is, should the plane develop any kind of an emergency, I'm the guy that they have to go to. I was actually watching this weekend while I was on a plane going down to North Carolina. It's pretty funny because it's typical every time you do it. Stewardess or the flight attendant comes over and they ask you, can I have your attention please? Half the people there are on their cell phone, the other half are reading their magazine, and then there's usually 1 or 2 guys that got the headphones on that's already asleep. So there's not a lot of attention going on there. Well, this particular stewardess one day was in there and she was asking us if she could have our attention, and I said, I sat there and I watched, and she stopped and she said, I would like everybody's attention. And she said, you know, I've been flying for over 15 years, and in the 15 years I've been flying, on only 2 occasions have I ever had to utilize the services of this aisle. 1 went really well, 1 didn't go so good. The one that went well, everybody paid attention, knew exactly what they're supposed to do. They actually could take the door off, flip it outside so there was a clear passageway, and they actually helped people get off the plane. And the one that didn't go well, the guy basically took the door off, put it behind him in the middle of the aisle, and jumped off the plane and got out of the way. The problem there being is that everybody had to step over that door, and everything backed up while the smoke filled through the plane. Now, she's also went on to say that I don't really expect that there's going to be a need for you on this flight, but if I do need you, I need to know that you're fully capable and able to perform the duties that I'm asking you. Do I have a yes on that? And so everybody paying attention said, yes, he knows. Sign me up right away type of thing. And the difference between that is she actually took a situation, a very mundane situation, you see it on flights all the time, and she made it very compelling as to why it was important to pay attention and what your responsibilities were to do in the case of an emergency. So what we want to do is we really want to spend time, I lost my thing, right? Spend time on our tool to really start to develop the why. So we've already filled in the expectation. Have we? Okay, so what we want to do is we want to introduce you to another model, a great model for communication, which is the why, what, and when model. And when we normally give out key expectations to our team, where do we usually spend most of our time? Well, we spend most of our time telling them what the what is, and then when we need that by. Well, what we really want to focus on is the why, and how do we make that why compelling? And so there's some more detail about the why. Why is it important? I want to be able to explain to my team member or somebody in my key expectations chain why this particular expectation is important. Why me? Why not somebody else? And I want to be able to explain why now it's important. Why do it this particular way to kind of set some boundaries, if you will, and why would I want to do it? So you really want to focus in on making that why compelling. And the story that I tell is really about flying all over the country. And when I fly, I typically like to sit in the exit aisle. Sit in the exit aisle for 2 main reasons. 1, I get a little bit more leg room, and 2, the people in front of me, they can't lean the seat back. But one flight I was on recently, the flight attendant really made the statement in the exit row about making a why compelling. She stood there and she really said, you know, I'm looking for, I completely screwed this up, but I'm looking for, thank you. Okay, ready?
Yep.
So, pull the story from before. So, the what though, the what we really want to make sure is that we present what that key expectation is so that everybody understands exactly what that is, and you want to discuss boundaries that are real or even imagined like we talked about yesterday, so that you can really start to address in that what people are going to be expecting, how the boundaries can be overcome, and then you really want to talk about what the overall support is going to be available to them should they need it. And then last but not least is when. You really want to be clear on what that timeline looks like and when that expectation needs to be met. So earlier we filled out our perfectly formed expectation, and so now what we're going to do is we're going to actually take our outer ring tool, we're going to turn it into the inside, and on the inside you're going to fill in this white box here, your key expectation that you fully formed prior to lunch. So that'll go into this key white box. And then you want to take and you want to develop your expectations chain. So let's just talk about that for a minute. In the key expectations chain, for the example, I am going to raise my takeout by 10%. Well, who would be in my key expectations chain?
Hosts.
All right, so your host would definitely be in there. Would your managers be in there?
Managers.
Managers would definitely be in there. Would your servers be in there? Maybe, but it's probably not something that you would want to do. How about your kitchen?
Cooks, yes.
Cooks, Expo?
Yep.
All right, so one of the key things you just want to make sure that you do here is you understand is that there's going to be key people within the expectation of delivering that 10% takeout that you want to address and be able to tell the why, what, and when to.
And again, you know, as we go through this exercise here, that this is not a theoretical exercise, right? So now you have your formed expectation. We're going to take through and you're going to fill this thing out, and this becomes how you are going to communicate starting Friday with your managers, the people in your expectation chain. So, you know, this is not a, hey, this is a cool thing that we might do. This is going to be the form that you use to communicate to your teams on Friday. So as you go through these exercises, make sure that, that you keep that in mind.
Right, so in keeping with that, the one thing you don't want to do is you don't want to put front of the house, back of the house, and managers, right? The more narrow you can get your focus, the better off you're going to be about explaining the why, the what, and the when. And that's really just one of those keys, because sometimes we tend to say, well, everybody's involved, and that may be true, but as you start to communicate to each one of these people about what their role is and how they achieve the bigger picture, you want to make sure that you're really designating the smallest group possible. So you're going to fill in your key expectations, and then you're going to go and you're going to fill in the whys for each one of those. So for my hosts, why is it important? Why me? Why now? And go through all of the why questions. When you're done with that, you're going to go down the what column, and you're going to present the key expectations, discuss any kind of boundaries, and offer the support. And then last but not least, in this column here, you're going to clarify the by when. And as we said, that this isn't a theoretical exercise. This is really going to be what you're going to bring back with you to achieve your key expectation and really communicate to the people in your expectations chain about why it's important, what needs to get done, and by when. So I'm going to give you, what, about 10 minutes to be able to fill this out, and then we'll partner up after that. We'll kind of skip to that part, but we'll partner up so that the partner can sit there and kind of really bounce ideas off each other to really see whether or not your key expectation, your whys, your whats, and your whens really hold true to help you achieve your key expectation.
So, okay, so now that, that you filled in those first things, now what we'd like to do is partner up, okay? And you're going to be each other's coach. And so partner A, everybody raise your hand if you're partner A. Okay, good. You and partner B here, you're going to go through and you're going to tell them what your key expectation is, and then walk them through the why, what, and when. Partner B, your role here is to be that of a coach. What things are working for you? Is it compelling? Are the what's clear? Are the boundaries clear? Is the when's clear? Okay, and see if we can tighten that up. So you have about 3 minutes each to go through and present your plan to your coach, and then flip, and you'll have 3 minutes for the other person to present their plan. And then, after they're done with that, so how did it feel bouncing ideas off of somebody else? Did that help? Yeah, you know, I mean, it's one of the things that often can happen when we are having expectations, is that sometimes we don't take the time to bounce those things off of people. And so, what a great best practice to be able to do. So, all right, so now.
All right, so last but not least is we talked about yesterday, as Jared talked about yesterday, there's different accountability styles, right? And there's really the coerce and compel and wait and see. How many in the room here are coerce and compel? How many wait and see? All right, so what we want to do is we want to make sure that we go back and have these meetings, but we want to make sure that we're mindful of what type that we are, so that we are acting appropriately. So, a coerce and compel, what is it that they're most likely to do when they go back with their key expectation?
Just a China and bullshot.
Right, this is my expectation, this is what we're going to do, you know, damn the torpedoes, we're moving ahead, right? They're probably going to skip the whys behind it. And therefore, what they're going to do is they're just going to force this thing as much as they can. And if they don't have a compelling why, the likelihood of achieving it starts to go down. But what about the wait and sees in the room?
They don't have the meeting at all.
Yeah, sometimes they might not even have the meeting at all. I keep putting it off, right, until the next week, right? So you want to make sure that you have the meetings, but more importantly is that you're doing thorough checks on the wins, right? So that we're really kind of measuring, are we making progress, getting closer to achieving our goal or further away? So you want to make sure that you're mindful of those two styles and where you are in the middle.